Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of my phase 2 examination experience of 2024. I've already uploaded the part 1 which covers the finance and management paper. So this is the second part in which I'll be sharing my insights related to English paper for phase 2 examination in RBI Grade B. Well, a general impression of English over the years has been English has acted as savior for most of us in phase two. The reason is pretty simple that English is not a subject where you are required to do a lot of recall. That is because in 2 out of 3 questions, answers they are right in front of you. You just have to uh, change the structure, organization to arrive at your answers. So that is the best part with descriptive English paper. However, essay is one such paper where students generally face issue, and that is mainly because of the word limit, because most of us are not very habituated of writing, 600 words or more on any random topic which can be assigned to us. So that is a challenge, but the good thing is it has 4 options, and you are required to answer only one out of those four. So you can comfortably choose your area of strength and then attempt that question. So the trend for this year was exactly the same as it was for previous years. Same 3 questions were there, 40 marker essay and 30 mark each for Prezi and reading comprehension. And it was doable. English is visually doable. But there are a lot of other factors which impact the score in English, and we'll look into it in later part of the video. So this is the part 1 video which I was talking about. So this is related to FM. If you've not watched it, you can watch it and have some insights. This is my experience of phase 1 examination. For those of you who will appear next year, they might find it useful. And these 2 videos are my previous 2 interview experiences. So I'm not sure whether you can learn what to do in an interview, but definitely you can learn what not to do in an interview from these videos. So if you feel like watching, you can have a look at these videos as well. I think it will be useful for your interview preparation. Personally, if you ask me how was my experience of English paper this year, so essay was mostly on predicted line. The reason was pretty simple, that the topic which I chose to write, it was pretty much in the news, which was mental well-being of employees in an organization. So it was very trending topic. I think most of you uh, would be knowing regarding a sad and tragic case that happened. So most of us were aware, and I think it was pretty, doable. That essay was doable. So I think most of us would have attempted that essay. Secondly, Prezi was not that complex. Last year, Prezi was really difficult to do because I remember it was in 180 words only, and it was very stressful to understand that Prezi and make a sense of that. It was based on space, I think, some space-related mission or some concept related to space. So it was technically loaded Prezi, and these kind of Prezis are very difficult to make sense of. And although I'm from science background, still I was feeling it a little difficult to exactly make it precise. So it was difficult that way. But this year it was, I think, relatively easy. Most of us got sense of what the Prezi was trying to tell, and people would have done fairly well compared to what they did last year in Prezi. Then last question was reading comprehension. So comprehension was also fairly direct, but as usual, it has some obvious hurdles, which I will be discussing, and how to tackle those kind of hurdles that I can also share a little bit of insights because this is something which I deliberately did this year. I was not very conscious in doing that in previous years, but this year I have done something deliberate in RC. So let's see whether it works or not, and what it is and how you can do it, that we can discuss when we are on that part in this video. So for me, I have listed out some evaluation parameters for these questions, which I think, in quotes, which I think is relevant. So this is not something what is there given in any official website or notifications. This is only as per my understanding. I have allocated the marks, and where people would usually most of the lose most of the marks, that also you can get an idea based on your interpretation. Since I've given phase two thrice, so I think a little bit of using that experience, I've come up with these criteria, which I think will not exactly match how they are evaluating, but there will be fairly some overlap with what parameters I've listed here. And weightage can, of course, the mark-based distribution can differ. So you see these three questions are there, SA, PRECI, and RC. And these are the relevant parameters related to these questions, which might be evaluated in the examination. So we'll take a look at that individually when we'll be discussing what questions were asked. But this is the overall parameters which I have considered. The red ones, for your information, are obviously those which I feel there is more scope of losing marks. So these are the areas where people usually lose marks, and this is very question specific, and different question look at different aspects of writing skills. So that is why there is a little bit of difference in the areas where I think people lose marks. So the first question was, of course, an essay. Like I said previously, it was very predictable essay. In this, a few topics are predictable, and of course, not all of them were predictable. So why I am telling is essay was on predictable lines, and it was similar to what was asked in the previous years, is because there is no radical change in terms of options that they are giving in the essay or in terms of word limit. So like you see, what would I call a radical change? So if all the four essays were, let's say, philosophical essays, like this essay, this third one, this is something little bit philosophical, not totally abstract, but still it was a quote where you need to interpret and elaborate on that. So these kind of statements or quotes, when they are given, it is slightly difficult to elaborate because sometimes it becomes difficult to understand the exact meaning of what it is trying to convey, because quotes are obviously said in some context. So you need to prioritize what points you want to put in your essay. You have limited words, 600 words. So that is a big challenge. So, but that kind of question was only one question this year. So, and other three were relatively fairly direct. Like, look at this impact of climate change on migration. This was actually a question last year, but in the context of a World Bank report. So it was most of, I think many would have read this or at least have an idea in the back of mind that these kind of questions are asked. So they could have done this. Then you have socioeconomic impact of Olympics, which was a very different kind of question, but still it is doable because it's sports, socioeconomic impacts, a lot of overlap between what you see in day-to-day life. Sports enthusiasts are there, and then socioeconomic impact, you can connect the points from your ESI and a little bit from finance. So these kind of questions are again doable. You would have ample fodder points. And then this question, which I have also attempted, which was mental well-being at the workplace. So you have to suggest initiatives and policies that you can frame or implement something on those lines of the question. So this is also one question which I think many would have attempted, and this is fairly doable. The only challenge in essay is uh, adhering to the word limit while not compromising your time for other questions. So that is the only challenge with an essay. And these kind of essays, like these abstract essays or quotes essays, where you are required to do a lot of thinking, I usually skip these kind of questions uh, in RBI examination essay questions because I think it requires a lot of time to actually frame the sequence of essay, how the flow would go, and what exactly the points would be there that we'll be covering in essay. So this is my general approach to essays. Coming to the parameters which I feel is relevant for essays. So in 40 marks, I'll say 10 marks is could be the content because content is the soul of the essay. Whatever you are writing, if it is not relevant, if it is not related to the topic, so there is no point of structure, grammar, vocabulary richness, and these things. So that is why I think most weightage would be to the content. But again, this is not an examination, especially English, is not in paper where they're testing your technical knowledge or exact knowledge related to the topic. So that is why I have not given it a very high weightage. But yes, compared to all other factors, this is the highest. Other are some structure and organization, language and grammar, vocabulary richness, creativity. Creativity is like what different you can produce in the essay compared to the others are. producing, like you can use some kind of analogy to write an entire essay. You can start your essay with some anecdote. You can use quotations in your essay. So these are the kind of things where creativity comes into picture. Arguments and evidence are how consistent your arguments are. Like in first paragraph, you're supporting some thought, and you cannot contradict the same in the second paragraph without giving the context, of course. So if you're writing in the same context, same flow, and you're contradicting your thoughts, so these kind of arguments, contradictory arguments, they fetch you negative marks. So this is the one thing you need to keep in mind. Evidence is, of course, the factual backing that you can give to your answers, which can be, available or easy to do for some questions, but it's not easy to do for all the questions. Like in this again third question, it's very difficult to give uh, some factual backing to the statements that you are making in every paragraph. Maybe one or two examples you have, but very difficult for all your arguments. So this is one another factor. Spelling and word limit, of course, this is an important factor. Word limit. So I have written this essay in around 580 words, I would say. And usually I don't write essays with this much of words. In previous 2 years, I have written at 540, then 550, some kind of in that range. But this year I have written in 580 because in the end I had some time left for proofreading my answers. So there I modified a little bit of modification I did in few paragraphs, and that is why it reached 580. Initially it was around 560. So you must be aware that those of you who appeared, of course, that the interface is essay interface is like this only, and here you have 620 written, which is the upper limit, the maximum words that you can write, and counting is done in reverse when you start writing here. So in essays, you should not be writing in bullet points. This is my opinion. It should be a paragraph-based format where you are writing in multiple paragraphs. You should know in essay that how many sentences you are going to write. So how will you get to know that? So everyone's writing style differs. So I would suggest you to go on Grammarly and write any random essay on any random topic. And so you'll have an idea that what is the average length of for sentences that you're forming. So in my case, I usually form long and complex sentences. So this is my natural writing style. So on an average, my one sentence is around 18 to 22 words long. This is the natural length of my sentences. And I write like that because I try to combine 2, 3 points. I use connectors a lot. So when you're writing the essay, or for that matter, descriptive answer as well, you need to keep in mind what is the average length of sentences that you write. On the basis of that, you can derive the number of points that you are required to put in your essay. So if you're writing this essay, so I had clear thing in my mind that around 25 sentences I have to write. So I need at least I need 15 points, 15 distinct points, and there can be sub points related to that point which I can elaborate. So this is the broad understanding I had in my head. So like when I'm elaborating on one point, so I knew that I don't have to write more than 2, 3 sentences on this, or the essay will become too unidirectional, or there will not be any balance in the essay. So that this is one thing which I keep in my mind while writing essay and descriptive answers as well. So this is one thing which can really help you, and you can try to implement this in your attempts as well, and you can share your feedback with me whether it is working or not. So how was the essay this year? I think essay was doable and it was similar to what it has been previous years, but I don't know. It also depends on the actual performance of candidates in the examination. And because of that, I had also run a survey where I asked that how was what is the feedback of or what is the feedback of those who appeared? How are they seeing the level of paper this year to be? And through two mediums, I have done this survey. One is my YouTube channel, where I have got 16 votes and here 26 votes. So it's not a lot of votes, but I think it gives an idea of what is the actual feedback of those who appeared. this year, and also they have a paid previous year. So this was a condition which I put. Now I'm not sure what how many authentic responses are there, but I would take around 80% responses as authentic and equally distribute it into all three options, because of course there is scope for error in every survey, these kind of surveys. But this just gives you a general idea of what is the feedback there amongst aspirants. So you can see for essays, it is similar or tougher for most, and it is similar or tougher for most here as well. But contradictory results are there. Here, more people are saying it's tough. Here, more people are saying it's similar. So I think it is more or less similar or slightly tougher than last year, maybe, but definitely not easier than last year. So this is one thing what I can understand from the feedback that I have received. Second question is Prezi. So Prezi is asked in 180 words. So this year, I think there were three to four paragraphs given. Four paragraphs were there, I think, and on the basis of that, you had to write a précis in 180 words. It could have maximum gone to 200 because that was the word limit, which was the upper word limit here. And of course, it was explicitly mentioned this year that you have to give title to précis as well. So this year, précis was asked on a very trending topic, which is AIs. So it basically it was like there is an experiment which was run to compare the performance of AI with that of humans, CEOs, and the decisions they make. And ultimately, it was found out that the decision of AI was more rational, and they did well in terms of quantitative parameters. But when these decisions were judged from another software's point of view, automated software, so that software fired the AI before the human CEOs. And it was also noted that in the Black Swan events, the decision making of AI was not good, but the decision making of human was good. So this was the broad structure and message that they were trying to convey. So they basically meant the AI needs to have ethics and morality related checks and balances before it can be trusted to such a senior or executive position like CEOs. So this was the broad message that was there in the Prezi. So and you had to frame your Prezi in on these lines. So this was all about the topic that was asked in the Prezi, and of course few basic things that you are required to follow in Prezi, that you have to write it in passive voice, and you have to mention a title to the Prezi and write it in only one paragraph. So these are the things that you need to keep in mind, the fundamental things that you should not be messing upon, or you can be heavily penalized and lose marks, where these are very easy marks and you should not be losing on it. So the in the 30 marks that Prezi has, I think 10 would be related to content, of course. Of course, it should be relevant to what is actually given in the passage, and your Prezi should not be deviated to what they are actually trying to convey. Then structure and organization, like I said, one paragraph. So usually what we do, this is what I also do. I don't know whether it should be followed, but this usually works for me. So I usually read one paragraph and I try to make it in a Prezi format, and then I write the relevant thing related to that paragraph. So this is the approach which I follow, and it usually helps. So you need to have an idea of how much word you will be giving to each paragraph. So let's say four paragraphs are there. So this is the first paragraph, length of first paragraph. So this is the second paragraph, and these are again two paragraphs, like two small paragraphs. So you need to have an understanding that if you're writing the précis in 180 words, so out of this, around 80 words you need to dedicate related to this paragraph, then another 50 related to this paragraph, and maybe 25 related to these two. So this is the broad structure that you need to keep in mind, and you need to keep a track of this while you are writing the précis. So in the real time, you can get an understanding that in this flow, you will not exceed the word limit, or you will not be less than what is required to be written. Your word limit is not less than that. So these are things that you need to keep in mind while writing the précis. This thing usually helps in adhering to the word limit in précis. And of course, it will not exactly be same, or neither it is mandatory that you should exactly be writing the précis for first paragraph in 50 words, and then this is for 80 words, and then this is for 25. So there can slightly be plus and minus scope to increase or decrease the words in every paragraph. But be very careful in adopting this strategy because your précis should not become a summary. So there is a difference between that. You have to write it in your own words and without changing the meaning and context or what is actually the given paragraph is trying to convey. So this is one thing you need to keep in mind, and that is why I have highlighted these two things: title aptness and clarity. These two things are things where I think there is scope to lose marks. The clarity, of course, because you should not be changing the message is which the paragraph intends to convey. And title aptness, title should be relevant, and you should give a title. I'm especially highlighting this because last year I did not give title, and I think because of that I have lost five. Of course, not five, around 4 marks I have lost because I don't think they'll give 5 on 5 to everyone because there can always be scope for a better title. So this is how usually marking is done for any English question. You will not get 100% marks because in descriptive, this is the point with descriptive that it has no perfect answer, and that is why you should not expect 100% marks on all the parameters. Of course, in the spelling, word limit, these kind of parameters, you can get 100%, but these kind of vague things where it is not specified that what would be the actual answer, so it is very difficult. That is why it is subjective and not objective. So this is all about Prezi. So I ran a survey for Prezi as well, similar to what I did for essay, and there the results I got was that Prezi was also found to be tough and similar and tough on Telegram. So I think personally, if you ask me, it was not tough to what it was asked previous year. In fact, it was easier. But if you compare it to what it was in 2022, the level in 2022, it was tougher to that. So, so in that sense, if you look at these results, so it makes sense. But otherwise, I don't think it was tough. I mean, the comment section is open. You can share your feedback, but this is what my understanding is with regard to this year's Prezi. And lastly, reading comprehension. So reading comprehension, some people actually change the sequence of attempting the question. They attempt Prezi in the last, but I usually follow the same sequence which is given there in the question paper because that way I keep myself sane that I am actually on the right track and in the right flow of questions. So this is my mentality in English examination. It can be different from different people, but I usually attempt reading comprehension in the last. Logic for spew is that in comprehension, if you skip any one question, if you lose on any one or two questions, so you will lose the entire marks. Like each question is 6 marks, so two questions you skip, so you lose 12 marks. But in PESI, if you're writing 150 words, let's say because of time shortage, you'll not lose 12 marks outright. So this is an advantage, and yes, it is very fair, and you should make your decisions accordingly, whatever you feel is suitable for you. But for me, uh, the flow of the examination is more important for me, and that is why I attempt English paper in that flow only, in order in which the questions are given. So in comprehension, there were 6 questions. Each question was 5 marks. Sorry, each question was 6 marks. So this comes 6 into 5, 30 marks. The most difficult thing about comprehension is that they don't give word limit in comprehension. So they do not write that you have to write every question in with certain word limit. So there, and neither I think there is any overall word limit for this question. Like I said before, there was there was a box and there was word limit mentioned here. It was not there in comprehension questions, as far as I can recall. So this also becomes challenging little bit of how much to write in reading comprehension. So there are two things come into play. Number one, what the question is actually demanding, and number two, what is the time that is left with you. So you have to, frame your strategy in examination hall according to that. You can go, of course, go with a preconceived notion that you have to answer every question. If five questions are there, so 30 marks around overall answer should be 400 words, 450 words. So you have to write 80 to 100 words each question. So that strategy you can also adopt. But to be fair, it becomes a little bit difficult in RCs to attempt each question in 80 to 100 words because the demand of question is also important while adhering to the word limit. If you come with the preconceived word limit, so there are high chances that you deviate from the actual answer and you put some non-related stuffs in that answer. So that way it will actually be counterproductive and you will lose marks. So this year's comprehension was on CRM tool, which was not being utilized by sales team properly, and there was of course advantages were given that how utilizing that CRM tool can increase the efficiency of the sales cycle and how managers can coach their team to use the CRM tool. So this was the overall passage all about, and five questions followed on it. So what is the main hurdle with respect to RCS is why RCs are given to us. The reason is simple. So questions in RCs are fairly direct. Like you see this question, an exact answer you will find but that answer will be in either one line or two lines. So these two lines, this will hardly be 40 words. That also I'm overstating. It can be less than that. And you have to answer this question, and it's a six marker question. So of course it does not make sense to write this answer in 30, 40 words. Which is where I think this parameter interpretation and elaboration this comes into picture. Well, if you see here, I have distributed this. So this every weightage will be if you divide it by five, so that you get it for each questions. So this is just my understanding. It can little bit vary. So you understand that what they might be evaluating in each of the questions. So yeah, so this you cannot write in, I was telling you cannot write in 30 to 40 words. So you have to at least make it somewhere around 70 words, in my opinion. It should be more than that. If you're writing less than this, then it it feels slightly unjustified to the question. And that is what why RCs are given there to check how well you can expand in the limited context and what more you can infer from the passage to supplement your answer. So this is what RCs are all about, and that is the main hurdle with respect to RCs. So usually my strategy in these kind of situation is sometimes it actually becomes difficult to elaborate in the limited context. But usually what I do is I have a quick overview of all the six question, and in my mind I mark that which line is directly or is the core idea which addresses that particular question. So when you're writing the answer, let's say there is question number one. So these first two lines are related to this question. And in comprehension, it would also seem that this line is also related to this question. But you need to make a decision that for question number two, this third line is the core idea for question number two and is the peripheral idea for question number one. So do not include or try to avoid this third line in question number one itself. So that way you will see that there is less repetition of the same idea in all the questions because this thing happened in 2022 where I did not practice mocks a lot, and these kind of things happen. And when you get to know in the examination that same answer is being repeated, so this kind of create a fear that you're not writing your answers well or you'll not score well. So this is one problem. So limit yourself to the core idea, and on the basis of this core idea rephrase it in your own words. Use some uh, data points or maybe some argument which are there in other paragraph which supplement to this, right? So this is one thing which can be useful in elaborating in RCs. And of course, the more you practice, the more you perfect the art. So similar survey, what I ran for other two questions, it's there for comprehension as well. Personally, in my opinion, comprehension was more or less easier what it was previous year. But again, to 2022, it was tougher than 2022. But here you see people are telling similar or tough, here similar or tough. So general idea is similar or tough, what people are generally saying. So let's stick to that. That was either similar or a little bit tougher than what it was in the previous year. So have a look at this some of the stats related to performance of top 75 rankers. So some clear indications are there. So in this year 2022, this is 2023. You have mean, median, standard deviation, maximum score, and minimum score of top 75 rankers. You can see here that there is a huge drop in this mean score of top 75 candidate in English. Now, this is not ESI descriptive or finance descriptive, in which I can tell that because of one question which was really difficult to answer or was very specific, which might have led to fall of the average scores. So this is not the case in English. So what could be the possible case for this fall? So I can understand three possible cases. So either the questions were tough, which means the RCs were very complex and it required higher level thinking to make sense of what the questions were asked and how to answer that. Second parameter can be examining performance, means that in 2022, students actually performed well and outperformed those who were there in 2023. But this much of variation, considering two mutually exclusive sets, makes it a little difficult to believe that this is could be the reason. This can have impact, but not that much of impact. Third is the checking level. Now, this is something which I think has a huge role to play in this fall. They have, I think, there is sundry decline on all the parameters, on the all the indicators. The average has gone down, the maximum has gone down, minimum has gone down. Literally everything has gone down. So what what it means, in my opinion, it is mainly because of the checking level that they have made it more strict, and maybe they have included some parameters which were not there in 2022. So that can be one reason of this fall. And through this analysis, I'm trying to make sense of what could be a good average score for 2024 and a good standard deviation. In 2022, you see there is standard deviation is actually less. That means more people are near to the mean score compared to what it is in 2023. Although I feel that English is not a section where you can have a lot of competitive advantage, because usually most of the people they do well in this section compared to other sections. It is they do well. So, but still, this just gives an indication that in 2023 there was more variance between the candidates compared to what was there in 2022. So this is just an indication you know of those who actually made into the final list, the performance of those candidates related to English. A little bit of deeper analysis of English scores I have tried to perform here. So this is 2022. So this is the distribution, frequency distribution of different candidates. So this, of course, this you can see is the marks range. Interval is 1 mark, and this is the number of candidates. So this is what the curve I am getting here. This kind of curve is here. Similarly, here you see this kind of curve is there in 2023. Now, what I'm trying to see here are these two factors. So this is skewness, this S is skewness. Skewness basically tells you how skewed the distribution is. So ideally, this is the normal curve. So this is symmetrical, skewness is zero for this curve. So if your data is more skewed, which is more either to the right or to the left, so this thing is measured by this parameter, which is skewness. So this value is minus 0.18. That means it is negative. So this area is of negative and this area is positive skewness. So more people are this side, which means more people have scored on the higher side in this distribution. As you can see, through the information here that mean is 68.6. So 68.6. So this is actually the mean line. This is the mod line. So more people you will see are lying to the this side of the data set. Similarly, in this graph, you will find that your mean is 58.5. So somewhere here you'll have this is the mean line, and here also more people are on the this side of the data set. So those who are this side, they have compensated their scores from other sections more probably. And those who are on this side, they have actually gained because of English. So this is understanding that you can make from this skewness parameter. Another is kurtosis. Kurtosis basically represents the width of the tail. So this is slightly complex concept, but I'll try to explain you what I'm trying to show here by this parameter. So this is a normal curve. And if your distribution is, something like this, so this is high kurtosis. So if kurtosis value is more than 3, so this is a graph of with that kurtosis value. Kurtosis value for this curve is 3. And if your graph is like this, is very flat kind of graph. So this is less than 3. So this only tells you outliers, number of outliers in the data. So if it is less or less than 3, usually it is understood that there are not many outliers in your data. But if it is more than 3, so a number of outliers is more. So it's a good thing that in English there are not many outliers, which is depicted by kurtosis here. So this is one thing which I observed. I think I shall convey this to you. These things are very open to interpretation, and you can have multiple interpretations on the basis of that. I'm just trying to make sense in the context of this examination and my experience. So all this interpretation, it's very, risky to make a clear statement on the basis of these stats. So, but this is I'm making it just to make some coherence in the methodology which I'll be adopting to arrive at a good score for English, and that is why I'm explaining these things. So in order to arrive at good scores, so the method which I have tried to follow is I have all these three questions and I have the mean of 2022, I have the mean of 2023 based on the difficulty level of questions that were there in the previous 2 years. So I've tried to divide these marks in an ideal average marks which would have been there in those years. So let's say 68 is the average mark for year 2022. Now 40% weightage is given to essay. So accordingly, 40% of the average goes to essay, 30-32, these two. So this could be the average, section-wise average in English for these three questions. Now in 2023, this declined by 10 marks. Now, I know this could be because of the checking level, but still, what I have tried to do is, I think since the level of essay was same, so I've kept this mark same, and I have distributed the remaining two equally in Prezi and RC because both of them were tough previous year. So this decreases the marks in these two by 5 marks, and overall the average declines by 10. Now I have an idea of what was the level of question in 2022, 2023. I have a base, and I have a base for marking scheme as well, section wise. And on the basis of that, let's try to find what could be an ideal score for 2023. 4. So this prediction, this is my score, and this is the score which I'm getting on the basis of survey responses. So let's try to find out what my score, what I'm trying to convey through my score. So according to me, the essay was similar level what it has in previous years. So I have kept this average mark same here. Pressy for me was easier than what it was in 2023, but tougher than what it was in 2022. So I've averaged out these two average scores to get to arrive at this 18 marks. And similarly, same thing for RC, tougher than 2022, easier than 2023. So this also comes 18 marks. So according to me, the average score of top 75 would be somewhere around 63 to 64 this year. But let's change this thing to what the survey responses I'm getting. In the survey responses, I'm getting that essay is a little bit tougher. Pressy and RC are tougher. So I've also considered Pressy and RC on the tougher side only in my personal experiences. So this thing I have taken the same value because similar or tougher level I have taken. So this is somewhere tougher than 2022, but little bit easier than 2023. So this is the generic idea I've considered here. Here I have decreased the marks. So 80% of the marks, what is given there, I've taken as average mark for essay. And through this methodology, the marks comes around 58. And the estimated marks, what I'm going to take is average of these two, which is 60.83. So this is around 61 marks is what would be a good average score. Now, based on the standard deviation, which is there in 2022, 2023, it's around 3 to 3.5 marks. So I've taken the standard deviation for this year as well, around 3 marks. And a good score accordingly will come 58 to 64. This is a good score for English this year. So if you think you'll be getting in this range, again, subject to your performance in other sections, you are on track. Also, you are in those 75. So accordingly, category wise also you can adjust your scores little bit 2, 3 marks less than what is given here. So few factors which I think which can lead to variance in this marking is first and foremost the number of candidates. So this year the number of candidates is very like 1/3 what it used to be. So this year on only 950 candidates are actually writing phase 2. So usually the understanding is that say if there were similar candidates, 2,700 which were there in previous year, and so we assume that everything is same, the level of candidate is same, the performance is same, the marking scheme is same, the level of checking is same. But when the number of candidates is less, so the assumption which lies in such cases is that many good performers in English are eliminated because of phase 1. So they, I've seen many cases, and you would have also seen that where people are getting say 25 plus, 20 plus in English, and they are not selected. And then again, there are many cases where you will see that people who have scored 18, 19, 15 in English, and they are selected because of normalization, what has happened this year. More likely that those who scored 25 would outperform those who scored 19, those who scored 15 in phase 1. So it is highly likely. The otherwise can also happen, but generally this is what happens. So on the basis of that, I'm making an inference that since the number of candidates is less this year, it can actually lead to decrease in the scores. Second thing is checking level. So it can either increase the marks, decrease the marks, but I have taken it to be the similar level for my whatever assumptions I'm making here. Third is impact of ESI. Now this is psychological impact. So usually if your ESI paper is on the expected lines, like you know how the ESI paper is, so it will not impact you a lot. But if you are a new aspirant or giving phase 2 for first time, and if you go through that grueling ESI experience, so it is likely that it will not motivate you. In fact, it will demotivate you, and you will think that your paper is gone. Like something which happened with most of us in the quant section this year, where in shift 1 we were not able to attend more than 4 questions, 5 questions, and we thought that phase 1 is over for us. So most of us we did not put up, full efforts in reasoning section, or we gave up. So these kind of mental blockages happen in examination hall. So that also negatively impacts score in English, and that can also lead to a decrease in score. So these are few factors which can have impact on this average and whatever whatever score I'm arriving at. So this thing you need to keep in mind. So a good score would be 58 to 64. If you're getting something closer to this, or you think even better than this, so you are at an advantage, and you can accordingly strategize your future action plan of action according to this. Thank you for watching this video. You can reach me out on Telegram. If you have any doubts, you can post it here in the group, and personal doubts you can mail over here. I try to respond to mails, but it takes some time for me because I'm not very active on email. Telegram, I respond whenever I'm free. So that's all about English and part two of this video. Next video will be ESI. I'll try to make it as soon as possible because many of you are asking for it. Because I was traveling in the past week, I could not make these videos earlier, but I'll try to upload that video by Wednesday or Thursday maximum so that you can analyze your score in ESI paper and you can come up with your further plan of action.